So if we've got a waddle working
Mm-hmm.
and there's a little bit of runnage coming
Yeah.
down the legs or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the assumption is that this is not a solid stool. Something has gone terribly awry in that individual's pants.
Welcome to the Aquatic Perspective by Sunbelt Pools. I'm Phil Collins.
And I'm Robert Morgan.
And on today's episode, we are going to talk about the manual that nobody reads. You know, Robert, we're in the digital age now. We've been there for a while, but I can remember back, maybe it was even 10 years ago, and we'd finish a project and have to put together an O&M manual, an operation and maintenance manual to hand over to the owner at the end of the project.
The 3-ring binder.
I mean, if they made an 8-inch 3-ring binder,
Yeah.
I mean, there were some projects that needed them that were that thick. And I wonder how often those went straight to the special filing cabinet known as the trash can.
Well, recycling.
Recycling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Literally.
got appropriately recycled.
Mm-hmm. We had to turn in, 3 hard copies or something like that. And I wonder if people ever thumbed through those things or actually went to the manual when they had an issue on their new facility.
Sure. You know, and we went through a little bit of extra work to, have a table of contents.
Right.
And I've seen some O&M manuals. We received them when we built this building years and years ago that was just a pile of all of the stuff that disorganized. And if you have any questions, thumb through here first. And
Right.
Of course, nobody would thumb through it. We would go through the extra effort and of trying to organize and keep equipment room stuff together and deck side equipment stuff together. But the reality is it never ever got used. Or if it did, it sure didn't seem like it from the operators. It was, especially during warranty period, they would say, well, it's under warranty, so anything that goes wrong is your problem to fix. And,
Mm-hmm.
and with our idea of service, our attempt would be to go and fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or assume that what they were saying is correct. So for the first year of a project after it's turned over to the owner, just about everything that would get done would be done by us, which would even extend that time period of an operator learning a bit how to troubleshoot their own system to the point that life cycle of that, we'll call it, we're still talking the 3-ring binder right now, would make its way to the recycle bin even earlier.
Yeah.
We've adjusted and now specifications call for digital versions of this. Once again, it's something that we really try and organize, put it in a format similar to that of like the submittals, to where things are kept together, whether it be a stainless steel gutter, documentation and cleaning requirements and filter information, pump information.
Mm-hmm.
Try and keep it in a logical format so that as people are scrolling through, they have an issue with some of the things that they need, that they can easily get to it and troubleshoot on their own if they had any desire to do so.
Right.
But I think that we found very quickly that's not the expectation of the operator.
Yeah, it almost seems sometimes, and this isn't a complaint, it's just a fact.
Reality.
It is easier to sometimes just to pick up the phone and call the expert who just finished the project, whether the issue is something that's normal or emergency or something like that, which we're going to get to here in a little bit. We got a fun game to play. I'm excited about that. But, why would an operator want to dive into an issue if they've got hundreds of other things going on? I can't figure this out now. I don't know where the manual is. Even now that it's digitally, I mean, they could access it on their phone, but maybe it hasn't been made available easy in their system, whoever the owner is.
It's still sitting in a PDF format.
And someone's email.
In the project manager's email, yeah.
Yeah, so why would they want to spend the time going to find that? They could just call, if we finish the pool and it's still under warranty, let's just call Sunbelt and have them come out and try to fix the issue.
Well, and you think about it too, the same guy that's dealing with these issues and making the phone call is also typically the guy that's working on budgets for the facility, or it's the same guy that's managing lifeguard schedules and managing operational schedules. And the last thing that they really want as another part of their plate is to be troubleshooting a system, going through a process of figuring out, first off, what's wrong, why it went wrong, and how to remedy the scenario.
Right. And, I think also 10, 15 years ago, they introduced video training for mechanical systems and basically just doing a walkthrough, right? There's a walkthrough that's done in the swimming pool mechanical room and just the project in general to go over basic functionality, sometimes a little bit more in-depth functionality of the mechanical systems. If there's a water slide, how to properly maintain it, how to maintain the deck equipment so it stays like new. And I wonder, because I've never been an operator, but I wonder how many operators out there turn to that video to go back and look at that. Or again, I don't want to go through the video.
Yeah, I'm just going to call the guy.
I'm just going to call the guys.
Well, and you think about it, and what we've tried to do is implement a program where it's either on YouTube or on a platform where it's easy for an operator to go and look at it, because I mean, especially with the younger generations today, when they have a question on a how-to video, they're not reading a manual.
No.
I mean, even instruction manuals of how to put things together are now pictures.
Right.
And most things come with a video option to
it has to be like a reel on YouTube. If
That's
it's
right.
not a reel on YouTube, the kids aren't going to pay attention.
No, and so we've attempted in a way to implement that, knowing that mindset, but again, it's complex and expensive equipment that they don't necessarily want to have the liability themselves, especially if they can say, "Oh, well, this could be or this should be a warrantable item, or it's potentially a warrantable item." We don't want to touch it because the contractor is going to blame it on us after that.
Yeah, and so you're left with your CPO that you have on staff being the person that should be able to answer everybody's questions and provide insight on, this extremely expensive, let's say, pump, VFD filter, especially if it's a regenerative media filter with a lot more functionality and components. Yeah, I mean, if I was a 18, 20-year-old kid, I don't want to be looking at a $150,000 filter and wondering if I know actually how to bump it, if it's a regenerative media filter, or even backwash a sand filter that has a linkage system. I was actually, before we came in here to do this, I went and read a few of our instructions that we provide in our current O&M manuals when when it has sand filters, and talking about setting the linkage properly to be able to backwash, and then resetting it, and then checking to make sure you don't have any air in the system. Just very generic stuff. But that really is one of those things where if you weren't trained in person, again, they're just going to look at all that and go, I don't know what they're talking about here.
Well, and the assumption, of course, is that the equipment is commissioned properly in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But even I think I shared a story before where we were working with a client. We built the swimming pool for them a few years ago. They were complaining of cloudy water in the afternoons, and we went to go and backwash. And as we were changing some of the valves, they're like, no, stop. We said, what? No, we only moved that valve halfway.
Yeah.
We said, where in the world did you get that idea?
Right.
And it was not the person that we trained, obviously, that had moved into this position. It was somebody different. And they had developed a system of moving the backwash linkage only part way, which meant that the water was just bypassing the filter altogether, and they hadn't had a true backwash since this guy had been a part of the team, which I think at that point it was 18 months. And so when we backwashed the filter for the first time the correct way, and moving the linkage completely, and then closing the priority valve to force water to clean the filter, and they were amazed at how much cleaner they were able to get that filter to be. And lo and behold, they didn't have to do a sand change 2 years after the filter was installed. All they needed to do was know how to backwash properly.
Yeah, and when we do our in-person training, which most aquatic engineers require that you do a certain amount of hours of in-person training, and sometimes when we schedule those, sometimes we'll get everyone in the room that needs to be in the room. But that doesn't mean that a year later, 6 months later, that those same people will be there. Um, and so this tribal knowledge, as any aquatic facility operator out there knows, your facility, though it might be similar to others, even ones that you have at in your system, your municipality.
It may be all the same equipment.
Exactly. But it's every pool is very unique in the way that it has its quirks.
Yeah,
okay?
that's right.
And so you could train somebody, they know everything about it, but then they leave that tribal knowledge that they've gained over the time of maintaining that pool, and maybe they were doing an exceptional job, and they tried to pass that along, right? They tried to give the next person a good handoff, but they were, they're gone.
They're quickly out.
Someone again now is taking maybe the original O&M with this person's tribal knowledge, and they're trying to make it work like they did, and maybe that works sometimes, but maybe it turns into a struggle to where bringing someone in from the outside like ourselves, especially if we installed the system, but even if we didn't, we could come in and provide some insight on how to properly maintain that facility.
It always seems, and I've been involved in a lot of these initial owner trainings, and it seems like the owner brings either 15 people or 2 people that don't.
Whoever was available that day?
That aren't going to even be operators.
Right.
And so when you have the 2 people that aren't going to be operators, then they're playing that game of telephone with the people that they train later on, and the information probably doesn't get explained adequately or appropriately, or they put their own spin on the training.
Yeah.
Or you have 15 people in the room blocking the view, and the people that should know are not the ones that step up and learn, and they wind up not getting a full training or a full understanding of their system. And then there's an expectation that, okay, pool contractor's gone now, it's my responsibility, and they don't have the training sufficient to operate the system.
As you're saying this, it's making me laugh because, as a parent, every time that we'd have another kid, you're in the hospital, and all the nurses are in and out. They're taking care of the baby. Hey, does mom need a little bit more sleep? No, dad does.
Yeah.
Can you take the baby to the nursery for a little bit? And then there's nothing like getting home with the new baby and the nurses aren't around anymore. And you're like, oh no, this is my responsibility.
This is 24 hours.
I got to be on. And I feel like it's that way a lot of times. If I can compare, and this is by no means comparing childbirth. That's not any comparison.
No, it's so hard for you, Phil. I know the childbirth is hard.
It was so difficult for
every time for you.
But my point is that when we do that owner training, you get this deer in the headlights look. The experts are in the room. The guys that literally built the mechanical systems are standing there to answer your questions.
It's been operating well with with what appears to be very little effort.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, they're gone.
Very little effort and likely very low bather load.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a huge pool that can have 500 people in it, and the most you've had in there is 10 lifeguards during training.
The pool guys getting their cool off during the closeout time.
Yeah, or testing out a water slide or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
To commission the pool to get it ready to open, and you haven't had your first 500 person bather load in there. I mean, things are going to be very different once that happens.
Yeah.
And so you cannot prepare for the worst during that owner training, which is what makes it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I know what we've done a lot is, they allot, let's say it's 16 hours of training. We don't sit there for 16 hours. We tell the owner, hey, we know you're going to have more questions. We know you're going to need some follow-up. Please gather your questions, gather your thoughts. Let us come back out after a couple weeks and let's do this again. Maybe
or even, and I think a commitment that we make a lot of the time is, hey, for grand opening, let's be there.
Yeah.
We need to be there. Let's walk through the program with you. Let's make sure that there's a full understanding. Have the people that are going to operate this facility here with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll run it for you.
Yeah.
Let's on this Friday, let's do it. We're going to be part of the team. We're going to be going through and making sure that that regenerative filters bump properly. We're going to go through and clean the strainers for you, likely because there's so much construction debris that on a full, and it's stuff that we want to be able to take care of and make sure that things are commissioned properly. Adjust again. We've been running chemical controllers now on not empty, but very low bather load facilities that didn't require the chlorine that is needed when there's 48 kids in the pool utilizing it as their porta toilet.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, Robert, there is a time when we get phone calls with a lot of questions, and we're going to play a little bit of a game here. And when I ask you a question, which I'm going to do here in just a second, or when I just bring up a scenario, you're going to tell me, is that normal? Do I need to keep an eye on it? Or do I need to shut it down?
Dun,
right?
dun,
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun, shut it down. All right. Some of these are going to be pretty straightforward and easy. I'm actually going to I'm going to start out with an easy one that should be a pretty simple answer.
Okay.
You have a child doing the waddle out of the pool, and as they do it, brown stuff is coming out of bathing suit. Robert, is that normal? Should we keep an eye on it, or should we shut it down?
Dun dun dun. This is a shutdown scenario, and I'll do a little bit of an explanation as to why. So if we've got a waddle working, and there's a little bit of runnage coming down the legs or whatever, the assumption is that this is not a solid stool. Something has gone terribly awry in that individual's pants, and so the obvious fear at that point is that the child's sick. Which unfortunately, without high levels of chlorine, most of the things that come from a AFR, also known as an accidental fecal release.
Okay. I feel like I'm 12 years old here. I'm laughing way too much.
So try and teach a CPO class when you've got a whole chapter talking about AFR and whether it's a solid stool or a wet one. So with that in mind, most 90% of what comes out of the rear end is taken care of with proper amounts of chlorine. Unfortunately, there's also that 10% that's not, and that 10% is very dangerous. And so, with that in mind, for the operator, the immediate thing is to pull everyone out of that pool, and to take care of it chemically. The CDC has recommendations on what it requires. We won't get into the specifics here, just because it's different for different municipalities. But the pool has to be shut down, chemically treated. That's a shutdown scenario, Phil.
Shut it down. All right, good. That one was an easy one. I wanted to start us off that way. So this one might be pretty easy as well. All right. So we talked about high bather load. Let's say that's this new facility, and they just had their first big grand opening party, and the water looks fantastic. But the next morning, they show up, and the water is slightly cloudy. Normal? Keep an eye on it or shut it down?
Well, it's normal.
Okay.
But it goes to, there was probably some maintenance steps that could have been addressed the night before. Cloudy water during high bather loads is expected. You would hope that overnight that there's a recovery period where the pool has an opportunity to clean itself. Likely that scenario where the next morning it is still cloudy, either the filter got completely packed and needed to be backwashed, and that was not addressed. In all honesty, in that scenario, you may have run out of chlorine, didn't feed enough chemical the night before. Same could have been with acid. There's a chemical. There's either a filter issue or a chemical problem that needs to be addressed. So it does not have to be shut down unless you can't see the floor, but it does need to be. It is an obvious need of addressing a problem that was probably overlooked the night before.
Okay. Chemical automation readout doesn't match a manual test kit. Normal, keep an eye on it or shut it down.
Yeah, it's time. It is a keep an eye on it, but it's calibrate.
Okay.
So, in this case, and you've got to. We've talked about this on other podcasts. You're taking a point in time measurement with a manual test, whereas the chemical controller is reading over several hundred tests in a minute. And so, if it is terribly reading differently, you need to test it again and make sure that the manual test that you're getting a consistent reading manually. And then you need to calibrate the controller and or make sure that the flows through the controller are what they need to be, because some sensors are more sensitive to flow than others. And so yes, it is a keep an eye on it, watch the trend, make adjustments as necessary. And it unless the chemical levels are outside of what the health department allows, in which case you do have to make that immediate adjustment.
An on-site call, whether you need to shut it down.
That's right, in an on-site call, whether it needs to be shut down or not.
All right, this is one that happens quite often on pools with underwater swimming pool lights. Kids were playing with the light, or maybe not. It's a lazy river, and they bump into it with their leg or something like that.
With the new, you're talking, so a new Pentair architectural light's been installed, and it's for whatever reason being used as a stepping stool.
Exactly.
Because it protrudes from the pool about 3 inches more than it should.
Tell me how you really feel, Robert.
Yeah, okay.
That light pops out and it's dangling there because it does have a little bit of extra cord so that you can pull it up above the deck and monitor it. What do you do with that?
Yeah, that's going to be a facility localized to the decision that you need to make. So the issue when the light falls out is that there is now an opening in the wall, and that has probably been used as like we said, a stepping stool for the kids.
Right.
So likely it's going to that now you've got a big hole in the side of the pool that's got sharp edges. Unfortunately, that is a scenario where the pool needs to be shut down and the light needs to be put back in safely.
Yeah.
Typically, it's a matter of just screwing it back in. But a lot of the times, especially with these big lights now that have been popular for the last 18 months to 2 years, it's breaking the screw off, and so it's a little bit more effort to get this resolved. But the short answer is, yeah, that's a dangerous scenario that you've created. It's not an electric shock issue or electric shock concern. It's more of a hazard, just for the sharp edges and the fact that there's a hole in the wall.
Yeah. Okay. Let's say that they're about to open the facility. A lifeguard's out there early in the morning one day, and they look down at the main drains, and the main drain cover's missing.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
Yeah. No and ifs or buts about it. So the main drains have to be properly installed, and even if they're slightly broken, it's got to be shut down. Even if you look at it and say, it's really no different than if that main drain's outside of its manufactured operation, it needs to be shut down. There is far too much liability at stake there, whether it be, somebody could just get down and get their hair caught in it for that matter, and create a drowning incident. The way that pools are designed these days, there is such little flow through per cubic inch or through the square inch of the main drains that if this is a new facility, if this is designed appropriately, it's not going to be a scenario of a suction hazard as much as it is an entrapment or a sharp edge hazard. And so, again, it's it is very clear in just about every jurisdiction that the pool's got to be shut down, especially if the main drain's gone, but even if it's broken, it needs to be addressed.
Okay. What happens when somebody goes into the acid room and there's more than just acid in there, and someone's delivered some chlorine and set it right there next to big old drums of acid?
Yeah.
What are we doing there?
That is an immediate remedy that needs to be taken place. Now, not every facility is designed with a separate place to keep chemicals. The intent has to be that they are kept separated. a lot of the time that can be satisfied by putting them on different spill containment platforms, and obviously in that storage area, having them as separated as much as possible. The expectation of having different rooms for the chemicals is relatively new within the last decade or so. I think some designers have been doing that for far longer. Um, but you are going to run into some of the older facilities where they have a chemical room. It's not, again, it is a scenario where the local jurisdiction may have something else to say about that. The idea though needs to be keep them separated, make sure they're not leaking, make sure they're most certainly not mixing. And the truth is that these have even in their containers, there's a certain amount of gas off that happens when you open these up. Mixing even those gas offs can create something similar to a mustard gas type environment. So it is very essential that you utilize the proper PPE when the chemicals are stored in the same room.
Right. Okay. This last one I've got has a little bit of a story to it, but just kind of try to help me out here. So there's obviously lots of things that can go wrong that you can't plan for. You can have an idea. So we've talked about training today. We've talked about O&M manuals. We've talked about how to properly hand it off, right? We as the contractor want to give as much knowledge and information passed along so that the facility can operate.
Have the best success possible.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. But there's so many edge cases. There's so many things that you don't know until that pool is fully operational. So in this case, let's say our service department or one of our project managers on a recently completed project gets a call and nothing's working.
Everything's off.
Everything's off. And they've tried to turn the pump back on so that the pool can circulate because they got people that are going to be coming into this facility later that day. But there's nothing they can do to get the motors running again. Is this this pretty much takes care of itself because if your circulation pump's not running, you're shutting it down.
Operate, yeah.
Right. So, let's talk about that. In this particular case, at this facility, it wasn't isolated to one facility. It's the power grid in that area is constant. Anytime there was lightning detected or lightning strikes in the area, it was, affecting that facility. And then in turn affecting the swimming pool variable frequency drives.
Yeah.
And so, we were able to make a special trip down there and reset the VFDs, right?
Yeah.
But that was not an isolated incident. I believe my PM said it happened another 4 times. How can you prepare someone for those acts of God, those things that are going to happen like that?
So when it comes down to an electrical scenario, you've got to have a team that's prepared to address the things that come up. In this case, it was a municipality. They had their electricians come out and test everything and say, it's all good.
Right.
Nothing's still working. And it happened that the VFDs were doing their job and appropriately seeing the electrical spike and shutting everything down. And so to turn it back on, it was just a matter of resetting the VFD to make it work. The unfortunate thing in this is that this particular municipality decided, well, we have a bypass panel on here and we can just pop it on.
Yeah.
And so they wound up just flipping the key from automatic to manual, kicking the pump on, setting the filters where they needed to be. And
which these are
regenerative media filters. So in fact, what they were doing was just deadheading the setup. At any rate, they were able to make it work. And the problem at this point is that you're bypassing the VFD, and like you mentioned, lightning struck several more nights, and what was happening is that it was sending that voltage to the contacts that are fused, but over time those fuses were popping, and so they were putting bigger fuses in and bigger fuses in, saying, "Oh well, obviously the fuse popped, so we need a bigger one," and they wound up frying the contacts, putting fuses in that were too big. So the truth in this scenario is that they got tired of a safety product doing its job and shutting the system down the way that it should have, and rather than looking at it as an opportunity, as having saved system, they wound up, and thankfully in this case, only frying some contactors
Right.
rather than frying the motor. Because again, with the VFDs that we have, the bypass panels themselves are also protected in such a way to keep the motor from taking a direct hit. If this was just on a switch, and the motor took a direct hit, that would have fried the motor. No doubt about it.
Well, sounds like the VFD was playing our game of shut it down.
Shut it down.
The VFD was like, shut it down.
Dun, dun, dun.
And they were like, no, I think I'm going to bypass this.
No, we're going to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And they were being annoyed by calling it a nuisance trip when in fact it was doing its job.
Yeah. Yeah. That is what we run into a lot, is issues that seem like they shouldn't be issues and that we should have thought about it before. And you know what? Sometimes maybe they're right. But, our goal is to build the best aquatic facilities that we can here at Sunbelt Pools.
And make them as user-friendly as possible. But there again, there are some things that are put in play. Another thing that people get frustrated by is, I ran out of acid and my pH got into a high alarm, and then it ran out of chlorine, even though there was chlorine in the VAP.
Right.
And we say, well, we have it set up so that your chlorine's not doing anything when your pH is high.
Right.
And so when your pH is above 8, your chlorine's not being effective anyway.
Right.
Get your pH back down to where it needs to be. And that becomes, in their mind, a nuisance thing, when in fact, what we're saving them on product and chemicals. So we do our best to try and set it up and be as user-friendly as possible. And whether it be acts of God or acts of poor planning, things happen that in the operator's mind might be a nuisance to them, but in truth, we're trying to save them a hassle.
Yeah. Well, maybe next time they just need to read the manual. All right. Thank you for joining us today on the Aquatic Perspective by Sunbelt Pools. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.